party talks. A man has been charged with the murder of the two RUC officers in Lurgan last week. Bertie Ahern is confident he has the numbers. He expects to be Taoiseach tomorrow. And the Mir space station in trouble again. This time it's damaged in a collision. Good evening and welcome. Tony Blair has given details of an ambitious new initiative to revive the Northern Ireland peace process. The plan includes a timetable for the Stormont all-party talks and new proposals on decommissioning IRA arms. Mr Blair said the settlement train was leaving with or without Sinn Féin. The Taoiseach said there was now an unrivalled opportunity to move forward towards an agreed settlement. Under the plan drawn up by the British and Irish governments, Sinn Féin could join the talks within 6 weeks of a credible and unequivocal IRA ceasefire. Substantive negotiations would begin in September and end next May. Decommissioning of weapons in parallel with the talks would be overseen by an independent committee and reviewed every 2 months. Mr Blair said any settlement would involve new devolution arrangements and that the British government would seek a broader-based Anglo Irish Agreement.
I met him.
Before going to the Commons to make the long-awaited statement, Mr Blair took time this morning to meet the Belfast girl who'd written to him. Margaret Gibney had said she'd seen only 1 year of peace and urged the Prime Minister to get a settlement.
She has enjoyed 1 year of peace in the whole of her life. When her children are born, I want every year of their lives to be a year of peace.
The Prime Minister said the outline of a settlement was clear and that delay was not acceptable.
The elements are devolution in Northern Ireland, including an assembly elected and operating on a widely acceptable basis, sensible cross-border arrangements between Northern Ireland and the Irish Republic, and a new, more broadly based Anglo Irish Agreement. These represent the 3 strands of the negotiations.
And Tony Blair has dropped the previous British precondition that paramilitary arms must be disposed of before substantive talks begin.
We propose the establishment of an independent commission to make proposals for decommissioning and to monitor its implementation. A plenary meeting should be convened every 2 months to enable all participants to review progress.
Mr Blair said that just 3 days before the IRA shot 2 RUC men dead in Lurgan, he'd sent Sinn Féin a note offering them entry to the talks after 6 weeks of ceasefire.
The credibility gap the IRA and Sinn Féin have to bridge is wider than ever after Lurgan. I've dealt straight with them. I expect straight dealing from them. We and the other parties will not be waiting around for them.
But the Ulster Unionist leader had reservations over how tightly controlled the decommissioning arrangements would be.
Does he agree that parallel decommissioning, as suggested by Mitchell, must mean decommissioning that begins with the talks, continues during the talks, and is complete at the end of the talks?
But I especially welcome today the rational and reasonable steps that he has outlined in the aid memoir to bring Sinn Féin into talks. And the central step has to be a total and complete end to all violence.
But the plan could yet go awry over the marching season, so today an announcement of proximity-style talks before Drumcree.
Accordingly, the Secretary of State is today issuing invitations to discussions with the Orange Order and the Garvackie Road residents at Hillsborough Castle on Friday. Nobody will be forced to talk face-to-face with those they do not wish to, but my right honourable friend will make a further determined effort to make progress.
A lot now depends on whether or not the Ulster Unionists accept the decommissioning plan. Tonight, David Trimble issued a statement saying yet again that if there's no ceasefire, the talks should continue without Sinn Féin.
The Northern Ireland officer said that in the wake of Mr Blair's statement, officials don't plan to hold any further face-to-face discussions with Sinn Féin. Gerry Adams, however, welcomed the 2 governments' proposals to remove decommissioning as an obstacle, but he expressed concern that it would become a block again further down the road. Unionist delegates to the Stormont talks denounced the Prime Minister's announcement.
Up at Stormont, a number of the delegates already at the talks table had time to study and digest Tony Blair's statement. Cedric Wilson of the UK Unionist didn't take long to come to his conclusions.
This, I believe, represents the response of the Unionist population to the document issued by the Prime Minister today, a sick joke and a terrorist charter.
Nigel Dodds of the DUP also condemned the latest proposals and said again that if Sinn Féin were ever admitted to the talks, the DUP would leave immediately.
I think the Prime Minister's proper response would have been to say the door is now closed on IRA Sinn Féin, or he should have said if they are to come in, they must dismantle their paramilitary organisation and give up their weaponry. But he has now decided to go the extra mile for IRA Sinn Féin.
The Progressive Unionists, who represent the views of loyalist paramilitaries in the UVF, said the ball was now firmly in Sinn Féin's court.
I think probably I would say that he's saying it's make your mind up time, and we'll soon find out. This day always had to come, and decisions now have to be made.
The Northern Ireland office is also making it very clear that there's now no question of any further face-to-face meetings with Sinn Féin. Officials here at Stormont are stressing that Tony Blair's offer in the House of Commons was the British government's final one.
Our London correspondent Brian O'Connell joins us now. Brian, turning first to David Trimble, he's obviously facing considerable pressures within his own party. Are these reconcilable for what will be a crucial response?
Yes, David Trimble is under considerable pressure, and it's a compromise for him, basically. The Ulster Unionists wanted decommissioning before Sinn Féin were allowed into the talks. Sinn Féin wanted them after the talks were completed. This is a compromise, parallel decommissioning. You heard in Brendan Wright's report there some Unionist reaction, and David Trimble is likely to be getting a lot more of that tonight. He issued a statement this evening saying that the talks should continue without Sinn Féin if there was no ceasefire. He told me this afternoon here in Westminster that he didn't believe there was going to be a ceasefire this summer in time for that September start-up date for substantive negotiations.
And of course that start-up date follows very close on the heels of the marching season. What problems in particular will this pose for Sinn Féin?
Well, it leaves them with very little time because it seems fairly certain that there would be no IRA ceasefire before the end of the marching season. Once that's over, if you go by the 6-week deadline, the 6 weeks of ceasefire deadline before Sinn Féin can get into the talks, as outlined in the aid memoir that was sent to Sinn Féin by Tony Blair 3 days before the Lurgan shootings, that would leave barely 6 weeks before the September start-up date of the talks, so time would be very, very tight. And Sinn Féin, as everybody is saying here, for them it's really make your mind up time now. They don't have a lot of time if they want to be in the talks by September.
Brian, thank you for that. A 29-year-old Lurgan man has appeared before a special court in Craigavon, charged with the murder of 2 RUC officers who were shot dead in Lurgan last week. Colin Francis Duffy from Drumnamo Gardens has denied the charges.
Colin Francis Duffy appeared in court late this afternoon, handcuffed and flanked by 6 RUC officers. He was charged with the murder of Constable John Graham and Reserve Constable David Johnston. The 2 community police officers were shot dead last Monday week while on a routine foot patrol just yards from Lurgan RUC station. The court was told the police had identification evidence against him. Last year, Colin Duffy was found innocent of similar serious offences by the Belfast Court of Appeal. A detective inspector told the court that when the charges were put to Mr. Duffy at Lurgan Police Station this afternoon, he replied, "I deny the charges. I won't say anything. I object to being charged in the absence of my solicitor." The police inspector said he was aware that a formal complaint on the matter had been lodged. Outside the court, Mr. Duffy's solicitor claimed her client had nothing to do with the murders.
Mr. Duffy would strenuously deny any involvement in these charges of any nature whatsoever. Mr. Duffy was not on church walk. He did not take any part in these events. My instructions are to contest the charges strenuously. You may be aware that Mr. Duffy was recently acquitted in the Court of Appeal of similar charges on discredited identification evidence. We're confident that this will again be the case.
Colin Duffy was remanded in custody and will appear before Lisburn Magistrates Court at the Maze Prison on July the 16th.